As is often the case, the latest State of the Game update from ReLogic was followed up with some further comments, primarily from Loki, but also by Line4s. I'm going to begin with some positive console development chat from the Terraria Discord, where a user asked, "Also, how is your day, Line4s?" Line4's answer was, "Pretty sleepy. Just got finished testing Xbox Terraria 1.4. It's going good. Very few bugs. Just some design decisions to be made about some user interface stuff mostly." So things are humming along at DR Studios over in the United Kingdom, and with any luck, the Journey's End patch will release earlier in Q3 rather than later. Oh, and speaking of the Xbox version, there was this tweet. And Loki wrote, "It's the little things that make you chuckle while you beta test Journey's End on Xbox. What have they been feeding my Skellahorse?" Interesting, I can smell it from here. Now, the rest of the developer commentary that I was able to scrounge up also comes from Loki, who did the following Q&A on the official forums. First, in response to these interesting figurines, which are apparently heading our way soon, Scientist B wrote, "Loving the names of those figures. Solar Flare armor, Vortex armor, Nebula armor, Summoner armor. One of these is not like the others." And Doodles also posted, "Summoner gets the short end of the stick once again, lol." And Loki just had to respond to that. Loki wrote, "Packaging isn't final, obviously, as you can tell. The team just missed one of the placeholder names. Oops. At least they fessed up to it." Windless Jeff writes, "Also, I found out that if you legally downgrade the PC version, it is able to join mobile, but mobile cannot join PC because of needing to port forward. Any way to somehow modify the way the PC version hosts the world so it can also be done locally without having to port forward?" Loki answered that with, "Port forwarding is required for any server or peer-to-peer hosting of Terraria multiplayer, with the exception of where a system exists, such as Steam, Xbox Live, etc., beyond the game to connect players. This is true of the GOG version of PC as well as mobile, as of this time. The team will be examining this at a future date, but the focus for now has to be on content parity. Port forwarding is not required if you merely wish to join someone else's game." So a technical question got a technical answer for those that were interested. I have the Steam and mobile versions of Terraria, not the GOG version, so I don't think I could even try this if I wanted to. Has anyone attempted to do this themselves? I'm kind of curious to hear from you if any of you have tried it. It sounds like a bit of an obscure workaround, even if it works at all. Moving along though, Retro Apo wrote, "Can I change this?" and posted the following image, which drew a response from Loki, who responded with, "Unsure at the moment. There are a lot of things one can toggle in settings, and I cannot profess to have tried them all. I'll ask DR Studios." Next up, Kalen wrote, "Can the 505 DR ReLogic QA teams make sure they test local split screen thoroughly?" Loki responded with, "That's the plan. COVID and work from home situations make this more challenging than previously, but perhaps we can recruit our family members to help." Parazy wrote, "Do you plan to add keyboard configuration for Xbox gamers? I've always wanted to play Terraria on the keyboard, but I only have an Xbox. I'm loving your work. Congratulations." Loki answered with what some of you probably know already, with keyboard and mouse support for console was announced several months ago, in case you missed it. Iodin's Ghost writes, "I wish I could play local split screen and tabletop mode on Switch as well, since I don't dock but once in a blue moon." Loki's response was, "Not sure we can promise that would be possible. That is a very small playing area there." And he is of course correct, that would be a pretty tiny screen. The same user was back with, "Mobile already has 1.4. That said, I'm wondering where they'll take mobile next. I'm hoping they make controller support a little less janky when they update." The response was, "Personally, I find mobile gamepad to be superior to what we have on console 1.3. Curious though, janky in what way?" Loki also wrote, "Mobile will move to 1.4 point whatever content-wise, as well as hopefully some porting over of fun things that console has seen arrive during its development, like the user interface editor and, yes, hopefully, keyboard and mouse support." The same user was back yet again with, "Mobile 1.4 gamepad is janky in the way that you have to map it each time you pair a new gamepad to the device." And the final response from Loki was, "Interesting, I'll pass that up the chain, not sure if it's something that can be addressed or not." And then moving along, discussing the possibility of newer versions of Terraria on, of all things, the Nintendo DS. Yet again, Iodin's Ghost writes, "It's outdated as far as the Switch being released, but the major limitation was making it cross-compatible with the old-gen 3DS. The new 3DS probably could handle Moonlord, but old-gen definitely can't, as old-gen has a history of crashing during or after the fight with Plantera. It's happened to me each time on non-new 3DS systems. I could maybe see a new patch to correct some of the lingering bugs at least, just no major boss or content additions." And this drew yet another response from Loki, who clarified the situation. Loki writes, "The 3DS, even the new 3DS, is just not remotely capable of handling anything post 1.2 era. As a reminder, the minimum specifications for the game saw a jump with the onset of 1.3 for all platforms, especially in required RAM to run. The new 3DS has 256 megabytes of RAM, with 192 available to programs, and the regular 3DS has 128 with 96 available to programs. Terraria 1.3 on PC required 2 gigabytes of RAM. You can only optimize so far. And that is quite a leap in RAM requirements. I know that consoles are generally far more efficient than a PC platform, but still, that's a heck of a leap, and it's no wonder that the DS simply doesn't support Terraria any longer. And honestly, it's probably challenge enough for DR Studios to get the game working in such good condition on the Switch even, let alone the 3DS. Unknown64 writes, "My friend's TV is a little weird, and for most games he can't see the edges of the screen, so he can't see his mana and stuff. I was wondering if you'll be able to change the screen size in 1.4, or if you could add that." And that did draw a response from Loki, of course, who wrote, "Yes, there is an in-game safe zone screen adjustment." And then someone we've seen in these videos before, ED209, writes, "Is console still going to be limited to the amount of worlds we are allowed now, or will it match PC?" Loki answered with, "Likely will have some limit due to how consoles utilize cloud storage for saves nowadays, versus the ability to go all local, such as with PC and mobile, and or other first-party requirements for total storage footprint. I know that has been a thing in the past. Unknown what that will be yet." Do you guys use a lot of save games? I can say I have a few characters and certainly a few worlds, but I don't think I've sniffed even what the console limits are. Maybe people just play differently. At any rate, ED209 was back with another question. They wrote, "Were you ever able to learn if a player can use both keyboard and gamepad at once? Typing is going to be crucial in Journey mode, and currently typing in-game on console is a nightmare. It would be good if we could play on controller, but type with keyboard and mouse. Otherwise, finding an item quickly without being killed will be tricky, especially in multiplayer where there's no pause." That's certainly a good point. And Loki answered first with, "I haven't tried it, to be honest. My setup in here is such that testing that would take a lot of time and trouble. I'll ask the team though." And you know what? Loki was good on his word. He actually posted this update where he wrote, "If you had a keyboard plugged in, you should be able to use it and the controller in the manner you suggest. You would press enter, just like on PC, to start a chat window, type it in, and so forth. Checking to see if that would also mean you could use said keyboard and all of its keybinds to create a hybrid PC plus gamepad control scheme, like one might use on PC. So thank you, Loki, for that follow-up. And control schemes certainly seem to be one of Loki's key interests when chatting about Terraria, and if you ask him a question about controls, you're very likely to get an answer. At any rate, that was the extent of the follow-up to the June State of the Game update, at least as far as I could find it, so that's all for now. We're in July now, so we're kind of counting down the days to the uncertain release of Console 1.4. I'm sure a lot of people are eagerly awaiting that, of course. If anything new pops up, I will, as always, post a video. At any rate, enjoy the summer if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, and get through the winter if you're down south. Thanks for watching, everyone, and take care.